Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about my top books of 2024. Now there's about 7 or 8 books on this list. I didn't fully count. So it's not exactly a top 10, but it is a list of my favorites. And these are the ones that stuck out to me the most, the ones that I think about ever since reading them, I just kind of think about them, you know? So anyways, with that said, let's go ahead and let's get started. Also, they're in no particular order. This is just how I'm presenting them to you. Up first, we have One Salt Sea by Shannon McGuire. This is, I believe, the 5th book in the October Days series. I have been enjoying every single one of these books as I read through them. This one had some, initially there was a storyline where I was like, I don't want that. I don't like that. I don't want it. And the way that storyline ended, I was like, well, I didn't want that either. So, and it left me a crying mess. One of the things that I love about this series is, one, I love Toby. She is such an amazing character. She a little stupid sometimes. But I'm like, you know what? We all have our moments. But it's the ends of these books that always get me. Like the way Shannon wraps up these books and leaves me in a hot crying mess, to where I like video call my friend crying and telling her what happens. She's like, girl. And the fact that I was crying over a character who I initially really didn't like, and I didn't like the story arc with them, just kind of goes to show like the kind of impact that how it played out actually worked, because I had emotions, and while I didn't want what was happening to happen, I didn't want what happened to happen. I can't tell you guys because it's like a huge spoiler, but oh my god, was I a crying mess. And I think about it sometimes and I'm always just like, I didn't want that to happen to them. Moving on, we have let me make sure I get it right because I mix up these titles sometimes. The Last Heir to Blackwood Library by Hester Fox. So this was my first book that I have ever read by Hester Fox. A lot of her books are pitched as like a gothic fiction kind of thing, and I very much last year was really into this idea of reading more gothic fiction, which I absolutely love. And Hester, the way that she like built up the relationship aspects in this book, perfect. Everything that I want. I was sitting there just, I was so just enamored by how the romance aspect of the story was playing out. But then the rest of the story, you follow this woman who is slowly losing her mind after she inherits the Blackwood estate, and you start to like see her spiral out of control and just start to make wrong decisions, bad decisions, and it's all because she doesn't know right from wrong. She doesn't know what to trust, what she can't trust, who not to trust, you know, all those kind of things. And just watching her spiral out of control was just so interesting to me. And I do think a lot of people didn't understand the story, because like when you go and read the reviews, a lot of people are like, she makes stupid decisions, she's just a stupid girl who's just making just a stupid. And I'm just like, did you guys not understand the fact that she was literally going crazy? Like, that's literally like the whole point of the story, is the fact that she's going crazy, and like everybody around her isn't helping, because like the people who you think she should be trusting are doing these really weird and suspicious things around her, and they're keeping her in the dark. They're not telling her what's going on. And then the people who you're like, no, like you really can't trust them, they're actually being the ones who are like acting like they're trustworthy. And so like as the reader, you can see the wrong choices that she's making, and like you can start to like see why she's putting her trust in one person and not the other. But just the amount of people who just didn't actually seem to understand that she was spiraling out of control and making the decisions that she thought were the right ones was kind of interesting to me when reading reviews. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really love the way that she wrote it and everything. And then when I was getting towards the end with the romance aspect, I was like, are you taking this in a direction that I don't want? Because I'm going to be so mad right now. And then she didn't, and I was so happy. Oh, I was getting real close to like wanting to throw that book across the room, but I read it in like 2 days. Like I started it real late at night and then just kept going. Up next, I have Ymir by Rich Larson. So this this was actually, I read this like back, I think it was like August-ish, maybe September-ish when I read this. And it was the only book I read for whichever month I read it in. It was the only book that I read. And I just thoroughly enjoyed every moment with this. The biggest thing, though, is I love the ending because it is such a realistic ending. You go through the story following these brothers, and so the way that the ending plays out with how these brothers have been throughout the entire story is the most realistic and necessary ending. And I did see a couple people were upset with how it ended because it didn't end like with this perfectly little bow on top. And I was like, that's not how it was ever going to, and it never should have. And I'm so glad that it didn't. And it's this very melancholy kind of, we've made it kind of ending, if that makes sense. But it's the way the relationship with the brothers ends that you're just like, you know what? Makes sense. But throughout the whole thing, you follow this character who he doesn't talk much because he's missing he's missing the lower half of his mouth. From like here down, it was blown off. And so he has a prosthetic. He uses it. He's not like a fan of it, unfortunately. And so he doesn't really do a whole lot of talking. So a lot of the story is told through like what he sees and how he like interacts with people. And I do think Larson managed to pull that off really well for not having, like, he does talk every now and then, but it's not like a huge aspect of the story, so don't expect like to have like a character who's always running their mouth. But he managed to like work it and play it in a really, really good, intriguing way that kept you entertained throughout the story. He also has, a lot of people said he's unlikable. I personally didn't think he was unlikable. I was just like, he is a grumpy, angry person who just wants to get his job done and go back into his extended sleep cycle. And honestly, if I had gone through the stuff this man was going through, I'd also be cranky. Like, I would be a cranky person too, okay? Like, but what was really interesting, though, was seeing his relationships, like, build and change with people, but was also learning his past, because you do get to learn what happens, like, how he ends up getting his face blown off, and you actually get to see how people, due to trauma, will change how they remember things. And I thought that was really interesting and played really, really well, and just made the story more interesting, because like you're already expecting everything to go a certain way, and then you find out, oh, actually that was not how it happened. And I enjoyed that very much. It's a very dark and desolate, I don't want to use the word sad, but like melancholy fits it really well. Like, this takes place on like an ice planet where this giant company is running over it and lording over it, and you know, people have like nothing really to like live for, and the natives of the planet have pretty much been like pushed out. So it has a lot of that. It's just a very dark and dreary kind of setting, but I really loved it. And there is also a Beowulf kind of retelling going on within it as well, because the Grendel does appear. It's been a while since I've read Beowulf, so I can't say how on spot that was, but it is referenced like in the synopsis and like the marketing for this book. So yeah, I will also say that if you looked up on Goodreads, it comes up saying it's book 2 in a series. This reads all on its own. It's a full story wrapped up. To me, the ending doesn't really have any openings for like a third book. And when I was looking into the first book, a lot of people said that the second and the first book don't actually like really connect, except for like maybe being the overarching world. So I would say you can read it by itself. I didn't feel like I was missing any information, because the story focuses solely on our main character, Yorick. So yeah, I'd say give it a shot. I really enjoyed it. Next, I have Gogmagog by Jeff Noon and Steve Beard. So this is a first book in a duology. Both books came out last year. I'm actually still in the middle of reading Leluda, which is book 2. But this is just the weirdest little fantasy book. Like, like if you like weird fantasy, this is the perfect book for that. they are floating down this like river that's basically like the dead body of a dragon essentially, and these weird things happen. Like when they go to these different areas, different things happen because of the spores that are in the air. But also there is this little girl who is trying to get to an event that allows her to have like her awakening essentially. I forget the correct term that they use in the book, but she's trying to get to a particular event for her like coming of age ceremony, and she is being escorted by like her robot friend, who nobody really cares for this robot guy because of wars that have happened in the past, and he's honestly like one of my favorite characters. But the main character, Katie, is this angry old crotchety woman, and I love it. I love it. It is not often we get to see female characters that are, you know, older than 30 as a main character, okay? Like, she's like 80s, 70s, 80s. She's angry, she's old, she's crotchety, she doesn't want anything to do with anybody, okay? But she's out here sailing her little boat, trying to get this little girl to this coming of age ceremony and dealing with all these different things that are happening on this river. And it's a lovely cast of people. There is a particular story in this one that deals with a boy that she has known her entire life. He's a young man, and she's known basically since he was like a child or whatever. And it was one of the most heartbreaking storylines that I've read in a while. And I just remember crying so much about it and just really loving every second of that with it. But the weirdness is really what gets you with this book, because you don't know what to expect, and it's not in a bad way either. You're just kind of like going with the flow and just being like, what is going to happen next? Like, what are they going to run into next? How is this going to happen? And it all connects back to like this possibility of this like evil, like good and evil dragon kind of thing that's being set up. So definitely worth looking into. It's just a duology. And like I said, both books are out. I'm in the middle of the second one right now, and I'm definitely enjoying it just as much as I enjoyed this one. I will say where I'm at currently in Ludluda, I'm enjoying this one more. I enjoyed this one more, but it's still enjoyable, and I think once I finish completing it, it'll be like a favorite duology. So definitely worth checking out. Then I have 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This book took me by surprise. So this is YA, and I struggle so hard to like YA, but I still try it every now and then. And so when I was starting this one, I was like, God, I really hope I love this one because I love this cover. And I did. I ended up falling in love with this. It was just beautiful from start to finish. There is this beautiful storyline about a stepmother and her daughter that's present in the story, and the way that it plays out is just heartbreakingly beautiful, in my personal opinion. The story with her brothers. So essentially with this story, you're dealing with Shiori. Her brothers get turned into cranes. She gets, silenced, and she is trying to get back home while also saving her brothers at the same time. And it's just beautiful. It's so hard to talk about it without spoiling it, because all my favorite parts are spoiler parts, and they're important to like the storyline and the plot and everything. But the pacing was perfect. I loved the main character. I loved the fact that there was not a heavy focus on romance, because that is one of my issues with young adult, is how they become very focused on romance without like the smut and the spice and everything. But they do become very heavily centered around romance, and that doesn't happen in this one. It focuses on Shiori and her journey of trying to uncover the secrets of her family, the magic, the secrets of her stepmother, and saving her brothers at the exact same time, while also trying to make sure she doesn't accidentally get one of her brothers, like any of her brothers, killed. And it's a lot about like her growth as well as a person, because she does kind of start out the story kind of young and selfish a little bit, but by the end you start to see that she has like changed and grown a lot. But it was just overall just extremely beautiful, and I just really loved it. And the ending had me crying in tears. It was just so beautiful the way it wrapped up. There is a second book because it is a duology. So there is still more to the story, and so there are aspects of the story that were left open at the end that I have the second book from the library. I haven't read it yet, but I hope it will get wrapped up. I am a little scared going into the second book because it's the second, and I loved this one so much that I am a little scared that the second one won't be as good. But I'm still going to read it. But at least I have this first one, and I loved the way the first one read. Like, I would reread this. That's how much I did enjoy it. And then the next book on this list is Sky's End by Mark J. Gregson. So this is actually a book that I'm disappointed I have not seen more people talk about. This is a young adult book as well. Absolutely loved it from start to finish. This was just a major 5-star read for me. I already have the second book on hold with my library because I want to know what happens to my baby boys. Okay. The kids are all about 16. You follow this young man who has lived his whole life being essentially rich and then loses it all and is like now living in like the slums of their world. And he is doing everything he can to get it back because he was betrayed by his own family. And he is trying to get that back. And he ends up enrolling in this, in their schools. They have this school system where each area of expertise is something different. And he gets one of the more dangerous ones where he is in the skies on a sky ship fighting sea serpents, or sky serpents. I mean, not sea. They're in the sky. They're essentially sky leviathans, giant dragon snake-like creatures, and they are fighting them. The political aspects of this story are fantastic, but the biggest thing is how accessible it is, because like I said, it is a young adult book, and a lot of times the politics in young adult books are too bland to be interesting to me, whereas this one was detailed enough to be interesting and entertaining and make me want to understand like what was going on and what all these political problems are. But it was also extremely accessible to where I wasn't feeling like I was being over inundated with things and terminologies that I was not understanding. There were some major betrayals that I was not expecting. There was beautiful friendships that were forged from, like, there's this one particular character. I love this boy so much. And I say boy because all these characters are under the age of 18. So these kids they're my children. Okay. I'm a normal person. Okay. And there is one particular boy, when you meet him in the beginning, he's not likable. But the character growth that happens with all of these characters, but with that one in particular, I loved every single second of it. And when it was getting towards the end, I was getting so worried that it was going to take a direction that I didn't want to happen, because I had seen these friendships grow and I seen them form, and I was like, I swear if you do things that I don't want happening, like I was on a roller coaster of emotions when I got to the end, because I was so worried about the direction that he was going to take this particular character. And then it went the direction that I wanted, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm safe, but I gotta read the second book. I gotta know what happens to my boy. The action scenes, so interesting, so enthralling, just so good. Like, you're just like sitting there and you're just like, oh, this is just good stuff, you know? Just, I loved every moment of it. But then finding out where these creatures are coming from, because you do get to find out where they're coming from, you're like, what? Like, the things that are left open for the second book, you're so interested, you're so invested that you're just like, I gotta know. Like, the minute I finished that book, because it came out in January of 2024 and I read it in January of 2024, and I was just like, I need the next book right now because I need to know what happens next. And the second book comes out this month, so hopefully it won't take my library too long to get it, because I am so excited for book 2. You guys have no idea, but I need more people to read this. It is also a great book if you have a young boy in your life who is struggling to find something that's out of middle grade but still isn't ready to tackle adult books yet, this is a perfect book for them. Because while a lot of people like to pretend that there's plenty of young adult books for young boys to read, there really isn't, because a lot of young adult books are very romance orientated, and a lot of young boys just aren't interested in that. And this one, there's like that much, and it's more of like crushes, like that kind of thing. It's done in such a young man, like a young boy kind of like way, that you would be like, yeah, like that's about the amount of romance that you would expect like a young boy to care about in a story. But it's great for that if you have a boy who's coming out of middle grade but not ready for adult, like the young adult bracket. I think this is perfect, but I also think many girls would get a kick out of it too, because it's just, it's the action, the story, the plot, the characters, everything, 100%, just 5 stars, on point, love it. I still haven't been able to get a copy from my personal library, because I would love to reread this. And then, of course, to end this, every single, and this is going to sound so biased, but every single Patricia McKillop book that I read this year, every single one of these were straight out of just fantastic. I love them. I love her writing. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I'm very biased in this one right now, which is why I'm not giving like if I was to pick one, I'd probably go with The Tower of Stony Wood. And that's just because I really loved the ending, and I loved one of the female characters in this, because she is graceful and strong all at the same time. And it also, I think, tackles the subject of suicide in a very beautiful way. And I really loved the way that Patricia handled it, because you could tell that there was care involved in it. It's just brought up into the story in such a graceful way. But overall, and like the journey too throughout it, it's very interesting, very intriguing, because it's a journey, because like you think the story is about a tower, and it's not. It's about multiple towers. And it's just beautiful the way it unfolds. But again, it has one of my favorite like little ending quotes is in it. A lot of her books are very quotable to me on the romantic scale, just in general, because she does romance in a way that I really like. And her books just have like that fairy tale whimsical feel to them. So if I had to pick one out of all of, I think I read five or six Patricia books, I'm going to pick this one. But in general, I think all of you should pick up a Patricia McKillop book, especially if you like the whimsical, fantastical, really pretty lyrical prose, but not like over the top to where it's annoying, just give her a try, please. She deserves it. So that is everything. That was my favorite of 2024. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that great stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.